Been king there several times. First time in '92. Last time in 2019, just as COVID shut us down. Had the pleasure of being able to do a lot of traveling, meet a lot of different people, learn stuff from them. Nothing I teach here today did I invent. I have cobbled it together from all over, and you probably, hopefully heard a lot of it before. Maybe I'll say it a different way that sinks in, maybe I won't, but I really appreciate you having me down. My plan is I'm going to start talking about how to fight a left-hander, and then move on to body mechanics and reducing your tells when you fight. And at that point, we'll be up and moving around some. I don't want you just sitting here and letting me ramble for a couple hours. All right. When fighting a left-hander, or somebody off-handed if you are left-handed, my focus is reducing their opportunities. Your normal setup with small adjustments gives them less targets, or targets that are harder to get to. And I want to do that with small changes, because the more comfortable you are, the more protected you are, and the better you're going to fight. The first point is when you line up against them, your natural, or a lot of people's natural tendency is to line up chest to chest. That's what you're used to doing against somebody who's also right-handed, because that gives you better reach with your weapon. Your shield's where you need it to be, in front of their weapon. So with a left-hander, I want you to adjust 10 or 15 degrees and sort of center up on their weapon. It's just a little scoot of the foot, but now instead of straight on, where you can already see my shoulder and my leg, I tell people to scoot their sword foot back about 8 inches and then rotate at the waist. So now you see less of this target, and the target's a little further away. But because of that rotation, now your shield's where you're comfortable with it being, your sword is. Because some people's tendency against fighting somebody offhanded, especially when they don't have a lot of experience doing it, is to try to adjust their gear to cover targets. And you can cover well, but now it's a big change to go on the attacks. With that adjustment, try to keep your sword shoulder inside your knee. Now all of your open targets are on your sword side. So it feels like you want to lean out and reach around. But when you lean, especially with your foot, your shoulder has to go out to balance. And when your shoulder goes out, that means the stuff they're trying to hit comes out for them. So if you want to reach around, you scoot your hip. Now all your stuff stays centered. Your balance is centered, you can still move, and that reach is there. I'll come back to that later. At the end of Llywellyn, Kern asked me to talk about stuff I do. I'm going to leave that because it's a little different than stuff you can do against a left-hander. But I make that step as I swing, because once this starts moving, that's what you're watching. So if my sword's moving and then my foot moves, it's much harder to pick up on the change of angle. Another change I suggest is some people look right over the middle of their shield when they're fighting. The left-hander's big money shot is often the cross shot. If you're looking over the middle of your shield, that means the target I'm after is about 6 inches past the edge of that shield. So that's all I have to worry about, is just getting over the edge of the shield. If you could try to look at like the 45-degree angle, it gets you to open the shield a little bit, and now your nose is another foot away from where I'm swinging. Now I have to show you more to reach to it than I did when it was sitting right here. And if anybody has any questions, as I seem to be buzzing through this stuff, please raise your hand, speak up. Yes?
When you take your guard, you mentioned chambering your hips forward. Are you chambered to throw it offside from there? Or are you chambered to throw a wrap or a flat spin?
I am probably a little more chambered to throw an offside.
Okay.
But I don't have my hips fully twisted in either direction. I try to keep my guard centered, so I still have enough hip for a snapshot too.
Okay, thank you.
So it's like a half. You're basically going up like just a little, not a full.
Right.
Got it.
Yes, which is a good point. You don't want to start at a very twisted up position, because then you have to make an adjustment to throw a good shot.
Yeah, you're just moving it. You're moving your hip maybe 2-3 inches forward.
Right,
Okay.
and that's why I suggest that small movement of the foot instead of. My leg be really safe back here, but now my hips are turned as far as I can get them this way, and I've reduced my ability to throw a forehand shot.
Could you, in the video, like face the video and assume that's your opponent and do your exact stance that you would use, just so we can see it?
Okay, and then without the shield in the way.
Gotcha. So you do a little bit of a flat guard.
Yes.
Okay. To stop the offside, because we can do it too.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, very much. And the benefit, or a second benefit to the flat guard, besides guarding your face, is I do everything I can to adjust how people throw a cross shot. Many people want to start it from their shoulder against a left-hander or a right-hander, but subconsciously it feels like they have to get it past their head. Their head's going to be in the way. But if you can see your thumb, and it doesn't have to be on your nose, it can be here. But if you can see your thumb, you can't hit your head. Just throw the cross shot. So now, instead of the cross shot having to go up, hey, here, I'm throwing a cross shot. Now the cross shot is just a twist through the hips. Kern had asked me about, do I use a thrusting tip much? I mostly use it as a threat. But I've never been a big user of the thrusting tip. So, especially if you use it a lot in your normal fighting, my suggestion is at the edge of range, when you're not in a lot of danger, dip just with forearm and wrist. Don't make a big movement to get there. But if you could dip that point below the edge of their shield, just out of view, and see how they react. Because how they react to it here is going to be how they react to it when you're in good range.
So what do you mean by how they react to it when it's low? I mean, do they see it? Are they trying to sneak it in?
Well, at the very edge of range or just out of range, I'm not actually trying to get it in. I just want to see how they are going to react to the movement of my thrusting tip without putting myself into danger.
Okay, gotcha.
My last point, sort of related to the looking at the 45-degree angle of the shield instead of over the nose, and this applies very much to facing an opponent who's also right-handed, is attack the edges of their shield. If you attack right into their chest, right into their shield, when they go out to face you and set up, that is as comfortable as they feel. They are the most ready to block what you throw and most ready to try to hit you. If you attack at an angle and not a bunch of steps, just little shifts. Now, the part of their brain that is waiting to hit you has to share some of that space with how to defend, because now I've got to adjust. Oh shit, okay, my shield's got him here. Oh, he's moved over here. Okay, I can still swing, but I've got to cover something else. Or if he goes offside, okay, I've got to turn, I've got to adjust. And all of this, I want to reinforce, make little adjustments to what you're doing, not big adjustments, because the more in your comfort zone is, even if you're not comfortable in general against somebody who's left-handed, if you're comfortable, you're more effective. So before I transition into body mechanics, any questions? Anything?
I do.
Yeah, please.
What's your stance? How different is your stance when you're in tight at A range versus C range? Do you have a difference?
When I get into A range, my stance changes because I don't want them A range with my chest. I want them A range with the edge of my shield. So I'll move in close, and then I'll slide my back foot back and roll my shoulder back some. So now I have a full range of motion for shots, and hopefully they haven't adjusted and they're pinned up behind their shield. Now they have to work their edges, and hopefully I can swing everything I'm used to swinging. Yes. Mostly I try to let it float out some. I've tried one side or the other, and I do let it ride more to the outside of my shield knee when I'm fighting another left-hander. But I found that if I just try to get the point inside my knee, I don't know who's good at that snipe across and not until it's too late. So if it's out a little bit, the point can move around some, but they still have to reach for that left part. It's sort of like the nose thing. If my leg's close to the edge, all you have to do is sneak around the edge. You're welcome.
Which shot are you talking about? The leg?
Yeah, no, he's just going to be
Oh, okay.
sweet cross shot.
Oh, my cross shot.
Yeah, it's a little step.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. I was going to talk about it later, but I don't mind at all talking about it.
I'm sorry, I was talking.
No. No. I'm here to teach. It doesn't have to follow a structure. So my guard, as Kern was saying, is in close here, and my cross shot is I'm trying to get my power from my hips and my shoulders and use my arm as a guidance system. But about halfway through the shot, I try to slide my sword foot at an angle. Once again, attacking those angles. So halfway through the shot, it looks like it's coming at your nose. And you're comfortable with your sword guarding your nose because the shot looks like it's coming straight at it. If I turn my toes and my hips, now it's aimed more at your shield side cheek. And I let the upper part of my sword rotate around your sword block. So, yeah, a half step and a hip turn.
You know, while you're talking about it, because I was watching the fire truck go by. I was watching the videos from your fighting, and what impressed me was your ability to throw it repetitively with power. And I'm realizing you're pulling, you're not doing like an offside snap. You're doing your hips coming back. It's a cut. So you're just, how are you chambering each time you do that?
It rechambers when I rechamber my hips.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's not obvious because I'm trying to not use arm strength for the shot. So rechambering is just this shift shot.
Yeah, there it is. Okay.
Which I found out Thursday Val is also very good at.
Yeah, that was good. That was the video I was looking to. It was a great fight.
I wish I was half that thing.
Right.
Grace, anything that?
No, you mentioned it earlier when you talked about where you're putting your lower hips and how you train your body. What's your shoulders and elbows within relationship to them? I mean, are you squaring off forward, or are you keeping them a little further back?
I'm keeping a little further back.
That's what I thought. I was just
Yeah, and instead of squaring my shoulders, I probably scoot my elbow in, which kind of folds your shoulders.
right. Yeah, your
But
shoulders back, but your elbows in
Right.
tight.
Majesty? No? Okay.
Oh, that's great.
Okay. All right, then on to body mechanics. And if you have a question about any of this stuff, you know, we're here all day. Feel free to come ask me later, and maybe I can find a different way to say it that might make sense. Also, everything I say today, because I say to do it, I try to get people to do it one way, does not mean a different way is wrong. The best way to adjust your fighting is to start from what you know and try adding little pieces to it and discarding what doesn't work. So if something I say sounds completely different from what you do, try a little piece of it. Don't think you have to completely adjust your system from something I said. What's that? Well,
And the gist of that.
So, in my experience, righty versus lefty fights often are, back cuts and wraps, right? So as you're rotating your hips to throw that back cut, how are you protecting yourself from the wrap to your leg, body? Okay, so you're rotating, it makes sense.
Yeah, my shield moves a little bit.
Yeah.
Plus, with the rotation coming from my hip,
Yeah.
now
It's
that
yeah.
that target gets further away.
Yeah. Well, it's moving the target further away, and it's also naturally rotating your shield to actually block your offset.
Right.
Yeah.
And then if I slide my foot, that change is accentuated because now I'm
more,
not in
yeah.
front of you. And I've changed your angle of attack too.
I like it.
The first thing about body mechanics I try to encourage is I'm not a big fan of the term footwork because I think it makes people focus too much on what their feet are doing. In my opinion, since you were 2, your feet have sort of known what they were doing. If you lose balance or fall in some direction, they catch you without having to decide, oh, I need to move my foot to catch you. And there are a lot of good things about training your feet to move different ways, but on the field, especially in a fight, if you think too much about your feet, your focus is now 3 to 5 feet away from what should be going on in your head. I try to encourage moving from your center or moving your belt buckle. If you move your hips and keep them between your feet, now I haven't had to make the big adjustments with my upper body to keep balance. If my upper body's still up and straight, everything up here is still ready to go. Like the movement mentioned earlier, trying to reach for a wrap. If I reach with my foot for the wrap, now my shoulder goes that way to keep balance. If I reach with my ass, now my body stays straight up. I'm still balanced. I can still move backward and forward because I haven't planted all the weight in one spot. This step, that foot's not moving. I can move this foot, but now I have to stand back up to move. If I move my belt buckle or my ass that way, oh, okay, well I can still turn and move because my leg hasn't locked up to support all my weight.
Great.
Yes.
So you're not actually lifting your foot, you're sliding.
Yes, but
That was the question.
oh, okay, no, I don't mind the question at all. But I'm not making a big deal in my head about how far my foot comes off the ground. I'm thinking about this moving, and that's just what my foot does to get there.
He does not. I think the point he's making is you're not lifting your foot that high because you don't need to, and you're controlling your balance when you're over there. You're positioning your hips as opposed to trying to step far.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about where your foot is, you're just thinking about where your shoulder is.
Right.
Thank you for interpreting.
So it's more like lunging out than like stepping over.
Yes. Yeah. The term lunge makes me a little trepidatious because it sounds like you're intentionally making a big move, and if the movement gets too big,
You open yourself up.
right, you can get stuck. But yes. When you're moving around, you want your weight to land on sort of the inside ball of your foot. You don't want to plant your heels. Because once again, if you plant your heels, that foot's kind of stuck to the ground. And frequently when I'm teaching, I'll ask somebody what other sports they've done. Because those movements were probably trained into them early, and they don't think about them anymore. But movements like in football, or wrestling, or martial arts, especially when you've got somebody else that you want to move with you, you're not trying to push them with your shoulders. You're not trying to push your feet to get there. You're using their belly, against their belly, to move them or turn them. And you're not thinking about, where are my feet when I do that? You're thinking about this movement. I have an exercise I wouldn't mind people trying if everybody wants to stand up for a minute. If you get in your fighting stance and relax your knees a little bit so your legs are not locked. Now try shifting your weight just by pushing with your toes and the balls of your feet. See if you can move your weight around without having to pick up and step. How does that feel? Is there anybody that's not sure if they're doing it right or doesn't like the way it feels? Or
My knee's not happy with me.
Everyone looks like a Mortal Kombat fighter.
ready
When you're in your stance, so I try to keep my feet somewhat close together so it gives me more options as opposed to being too wide.
Right.
Are you doing like so? Like if you were to look at mine from the side, they're really not that. I'm very linear because I'm focused forward.
Okay.
I'm just trying to get. I think I can get yours on the screen. Yeah. So no, you're fine right there.
Okay.
So you're pretty close together too, then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they may not be close. They're close in line. Not necessarily close together,
No, yeah, but yeah.
but yeah, close in line.
So like dropping straight from your shoulders down.
Yeah.
Usually under your shoulders.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
That's like your shoulders are a little wider than mine.
And then when I take a step, they get wider and I gather back together. And that's it. That's the whole exercise. It's just seeing how it feels to move your weight around with the balls of your feet, not stiff leg steps. And later, if it doesn't feel like that's translating into fighting movement, let me know. I'll come over and see what I can do.
I just understand, I think I heard. And I've never heard about never like belly button.
Right.
I've always enjoyed, like you said, being able to do that subtle lean to my body with the creates the illusion that I'm in range. And then a shift slightly backwards, I'm not actually in range. And then they've committed that shot, and all of a sudden I am in range again after they've committed to it.
But your weight is over your thing, and you're shifting your hips.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, yeah.
And I'm a big fan of the opposite of that. I'll leave my upper body where it is and I'll shift my hips. So they think they're fighting at C range until they swing and then I stand up.
Surprise.
That's cool.
All right, everybody can sit back down if you'd like to. Now I'm going to talk about the sword strike. A lot of people try to move the sword with their arm. And I still use more arm than I would like to, but my goal is to use the big muscles of my body to move my sword, and then to use my arm as a guidance system. When we were talking about being able to do the cross shot over and over again.
Yeah.
If you use your arm, okay, 4 shots and these muscles are really starting to feel it. If you're using your hips, it's going to be quite a while before these muscles wear out. Oh. I try to throw the sword strike like a whip. I want to move the base of the sword. I'm almost pulling down on the very butt of the sword and letting the sword snap in behind it. That is going to get it there so much faster than you could ever push it by trying to tighten up and get the stick there with your arm. So, if I stand behind everybody.
I think you're fine.
Right here?
We can see you.
Okay. So, if I'm pushing the stick, that's not bad. But if I am just trying to yank the butt of the sword across my stomach, you almost can't swing it slow. Because that relaxed hand lets it move like it wants to.
You have to be closer for that, though, right? Doesn't it limit you lower the range? You have to stay close to your chest.
I'm exaggerating it staying in close. No, that's a good question. No, you're right. If I did keep it in close to my chest, yes. I'm exaggerating that to show the difference, because pulling across can be pulling the butt to here. Yeah, it's not so much where your hand goes, it's that you're not trying to push the sword into the target.
And you can also guide it up after, as you drop, you can still guide it because you've got the momentum.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if your arm's not tight, you still have a lot of control over where it ends up.
Yeah.
After some fights with Val Thursday night, Cherish came scooting over to me. And how did you do this awesome weird fake and it ended up in his armpit? You got to show me how to do that.
She's a lefty too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what had happened is I started the butt down, so it looked like a leg shot.
I know the shot, yeah.
But then I rolled the wrap over, and the sword came back up.
Yeah, I saw it on the video. It was cool.
An additional piece of that particular shot was the A range thing I was talking about. That I don't want my chest up against my shield in A range, I don't lean back. And I lean back a little more when it's in A+ range, toe to toe. And so this shot that looked like a leg had plenty of room to change direction and roll up. But if you think about how you throw an axe or a spear or a baseball or even a dart, you're not trying to arm that object into your target. You want that arm as relaxed as possible for detail and targeting. Yeah, you don't stand straight up and throw a dart like this, not for very long. You relax the arm and you sort of use your body to push it away from you, so your fingers can adjust to how bad your friends are beating you at darts, and you don't have to pay for the beer all the time.
I'm learning why I'm so bad at darts. Oh, you don't do that.
Yeah. Little arm movement, okay?
This shot will also, you can add a little speed by leaning your chest back a little bit. It changes the arm of momentum, I think is the term. You can lean your chest back, or you can rotate your hips a little bit.
Are you wrapping or throwing with the front?
Either one.
Oh, okay.
That or that.
Okay.
But if your core moves away from it, now that arc, because there's an arc even to a snapshot, you pull the center of that arm a little bit and it travels faster. Now on to our second exercise. If everybody could stand up and grab a sword. And you'll want a little more room between each other fists.
Yeah, maybe.
Stand right at the top of each other. We can more entertaining.
Makes for great video.
Now flip your sword around so the basket hilt's at the end. Now that sword got a lot harder to push where you want it to go. But if it's on my shoulder and I pull down on the tip that's in my hand, it wants to keep swinging. If I keep my arm relaxed, I can control where that swing goes.
Hold the end.
Yeah, if I'm pulling that little finger and letting the whip of the sword go around afterward, hopefully that feels more comfortable than trying to tighten my hand up and push this where I want it to go. And I've got a metal basket hilt sword if anybody wants to try it with that. There's a bigger difference than a plastic one. And if anybody has any questions about this move. Alright. Pull your little finger and let the whip of the sword travel in the arc it wants to, rather than trying to stiff arm the sword into your target. Yeah. Yeah.
You can feel it.
Yeah, but that
When I do
with
a pull down.
with the metal basket, it exaggerates the difference between them. But when you fight, you want it to come back anyway, in case it doesn't work. Yeah. Yeah. And I noticed the fellow in blue behind you throwing a cross shot with it. Same thing. Pull that little finger and let the sword follow the whip motion. There you go. Right now we're not so much worried about that part. That's the path the sword wants to do. So instead of me trying to get to you, just there you go. If it can go down, then I can pull across my midsection instead of across my hip. And now it wants to go out. Yeah. And hopefully the sword moving like that feels comfortable. It may feel different than how you do it, but and if it doesn't feel comfortable, let me know and I'll. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, if you just push it out, you start to torque it a little bit right away. You get. I think it's something I do, but I mean, I'm not always metaphorically aware of what I do. You know.
Yeah, especially in the middle of a fight, you're not thinking about doing it.
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned something related to this, and it's a weird esoteric take on it, but if you can think of the sword being pulled to the target like a magnet,
Hey guys. This is sound.
then that sort of takes out the pushing that you want to do, because if the sword's moving like it's being pulled like a magnet, now all of a sudden I don't have to push it there, it's just going there. I just have to figure out how to move my arm to let it travel. But like I said, that's sort of a very conceptual version to this. And it took a while for me to wrap my head around the whole magnet thing. I'm about to start talking about how to reduce tells. If we want to take a minute for anybody, including me, to get something to drink.
Okay, I was gonna bring a water anyway.
Okay.
Get some water.
And before I move on to tells, Barack has mentioned something that I had skipped over. There is a website called mirrorthevideo.com. I posted it on the Facebook group for this event. I sent it to Kern and I put it in the Thursday night fighter practice thing. It, if you take any video on YouTube and replace youtube.com with mirrorthevideo.com, it flips the whole thing horizontally. So now it's mirrored. So if you've ever thought, yeah, I wonder how you would do that left-handed, or I wonder how that you do that left-handed guy thing right-handed. Now they're fighting with the opposite hand. A second huge benefit that I've found from this tool, although it added years of time I spent watching YouTube, is if you get video of yourself, there are so many subconscious assumptions you make when you're watching yourself on video. You didn't intentionally do anything wrong, so you start with the assumption that it's right. So it's hard to see what to change. But you run it through that, and now you're watching yourself do it left-handed, which your brain is not used to seeing. So it looks like a completely different person doing it, and you can see the stuff you're doing that's not obvious when you just watch yourself in video.
Pretty cool.
It's for any YouTube video, take where it says youtube.com/whatever, put in mirrorthevideo.com/whatever. And like I said, it's on the Facebook page for this event site, and a couple others, and Kern has it, so we can get it to you if you don't remember it later.
I don't know. I think somebody sent it to me once before. Maybe it's gonna.
All right. With tells, the more you can reduce how obvious what you're going to do is, the less your opponent's going to be ready for it. The short list of things that are easy to work on, or easier to work on, is, does your body move first before you're ready to swing? Does it look like I'm coming after you before I start to swing at you? Well, if it does, something's happening. And I've given you a chance to react before I actually swing at you. Do you overcommit to a direction? Oh, he's really working on trying to get that leg. So even his movement is chasing it. And I know you have to move to get to targets, but it doesn't, your intended movement doesn't have to be the only movement you make. I tend to shift around a lot, even when I'm just standing there. And it's not intentional that which way is he going? Because that would wear me the hell out, which doesn't take much. But not standing still means there's not a start button for my opponent when I'm about to do something. As I mentioned with the reaching with your foot, do I lean in? Am I leaning in trying to get to a shot? If my upper body's going to make a big movement before a shot, there's your warning again. Something I see a lot of, and a lot of on video, is people in a stance that's protective, but their sword is not in a position to make an attack. Which means before they can do anything to hurt you, they have to shift their sword to start it. If your sword's straight up, unless you're a big monster like Greg or an armorer or somebody has so much arm strength, you can hit somebody with your sword up. I can't. So from here, I've got to drop my sword back before I start a shot. Even if I'm not using my arm for the power to guide it where I want it to go, it can't start here. I can have it out and then it moves, or I can have it back and I move. But straight up means I'm going to warn you when I start something. I can't even mentally stop myself from doing it because it's got to dip back before something happens. I buzzed through that list kind of quickly. Are there any questions about anything on that list?
So how do you hold your sword so that it's ready charge?
I have it back about 30 degrees.
You just point the tip away.
Yeah. Also, straight up, I have to tighten my hand to hold the sword straight up, which means I have to loosen my hand to start a strike. My plan here is to get us together in our armor and in groups of 5 or 6, and I want you to stand at the very edge of range and start an attack at your opponent. I don't want anybody actually, close enough to hit each other, but I want you close enough that you can reach their shield so that your opponent can tell you what they saw first, what happened first. Hey, I knew you were attacking because also on my list here is the thing I mentioned earlier about the cross shot. Not feel like you have to go over your head to throw it. Because you use this cross shot plenty on right versus right. And same thing, if it feels even unconsciously like I have to get over my head, I have to either duck or move my shield, move my head, then I can't see my thumb. Because once I see my thumb, I know I have to work at getting my sword into my head. If I can see my thumb, once I've started the shot, it's so far past my helmet. My helmet's not in the way.
So a lot of us aren't in armor right now. So
Right.
Because the people who are in armor pair up, and the people who aren't, and then we could pair up, and you kind of go around. And I have a couple of center grip shields, so we could take turns being lefty, or if you have a center grip shield, pair up with somebody you can practice being a lefty. Is that what you're talking about? So you can kind
No,
of.
I was just talking right on right.
Oh, okay,
This
that's
is
fine.
all just about fighting each other.
Okay.
And we can start this drill after everybody gets their stuff
Okay.
on.
Oh, okay, for later.
Yeah. I'm just on to my.
Sure.
This is my last planned subject
Gotcha.
before we get to Q&A, I guess.
Sure.
And the only addendum to this I have is what I mentioned earlier about fighting a left-hander, is attacking the edge of the shield at angles instead of attacking the center. And that's also very important when you're fighting somebody who's also right-handed. If I'm swinging even at your head, if I'm swinging towards the middle of your shield, that's much less threat you feel to other targets. But if my attack, even with just a little angle change, is towards an edge, well, now that shield might or might not be in the way. If that has some foot movement with it, something behind the shield might be in more danger. But if I just move straight into you, anything you feel that shield's ready to catch, you don't feel threatened by. Does that make sense?
Very small.
But might be enough.
Yes, and small is a very important word because
Make a difference.
yeah, and you want to do that with small changes because back to it being obvious what you're doing, a big change is going to be much more obvious to the person you're fighting that something's going on. And if you can make that change after you've started the swing, even better. Because now they can't watch your feet. They've got to keep an eye on that sword. I think I mentioned it at the end of the left-handed thing. If I start that shot first and then slide my feet, my hips, they don't know it's going to land where it didn't look like it was starting to.
You find people, once you do that a couple of times, they start to overcompensate and give you other things like, no, I think I'm blocking that, but he's getting it, so now I'm going to start to
Yes.
overblock in that direction and open something else up.
And if it is not that difficult to make a cross shot less deep, so instead of it coming real deep over the ear, well, if they over adjust for it, I just flatten it out so it comes in under their sword, not yes.
For somebody who has the cross shot that they feel like they have to move their head forward sometimes, what would you recommend as practice to change that up?
Yeah.
When you say forward, you can see your thumbs.
Yeah.
You're not going to move your head.
Yeah.
So just hold my sword a little bit more forward?
Yeah.
Okay.
And especially if your stick is relaxed, if it's not straight up, scooting your hand a little bit forward isn't a detriment to your defense. You know, this defense and this defense is not a big change to. Or if it's a forward defense. As a left-hander, another reason I don't like this is, well, now my sword sits straight over my arm, which is a right-hander's favorite target on me, and my least favorite place to be hit. Yes.
So you keep going backwards, feeling your thumb, right? So when using, like you were suggesting earlier, squeezing with your pinky, my thumb automatically wants to go straight out. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
When I do that, my thumb goes straight out as a curve.
Uh-huh.
Follow that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and yes, it does make sense because when I say seeing your thumb, I'm really talking about seeing the ball of your hand before the shot starts. After the start, after these shots starts, you don't have to keep watching your hand. It's just that if my hand's sitting here, when I start that shot, my helmet's not moving. Okay, I'm not trying to watch my thumb all the way through the shot. Thank you, yes.
Thank you.
So if I'm going to take a little privilege, and I'm going to ask you to go over and maybe videotape the interaction you had with Aelwyn and recreating. So do you mind if we use these?
Okay.
I want to see how you're able to bring those repetitive.
You want to see how I'm able, wait.
Yeah, yeah.
So the camera can hear you, see how I'm able
what
to
your
throw
thought
what?
process is. I can watch the video over and over again, but
He just gave you permission to hit him in the head.
no, we're not hitting you in the head.
Yes, sir. He's the boss. No.
He's the boss.
That's
Very
true.
boss. All right, so you when you were fighting Daffyd, I watched the video, but I just want to get you were both standing here, right? And you were able to just go wham, wham, and they were, I mean, just over and over again, and it didn't even look like you were moving, right? So you were doing a little bit more of a hanging guard, I think,
Okay.
and so from this position, you were doing all kinds of angles. What is so you're doing that?
All right.
I might be able to block that. Okay, so that. So everything, your hips coming back on all of those.
That's for you.
Listen, that's why we're using these.
Yeah,
right?
don't let him finish this with a cup shot.
Right.
So you were, I'm trying to see your shield positioning and your. So I'm also fighting with. He was also fighting, I think, with a sword foot lead.
Yes.
Okay, so why do you ever use a sword foot lead? Or?
No.
Okay.
I am not comfortable with, and it's too big a target. To me, it's too big a target with a sword foot.
And it's a farther reach. I guess.
Right, and that's why it's less targeted, really, because with a, in my opinion,
And I don't think I would be as sword foot with when I'm
Right.
in close. I would probably be a little square, more square.
yes.
Or
And-
maybe even like that. I don't know.
Yeah, and more square is the adjustment I talked about, which is the normal stance, and then scoot your foot back, 8 to 12 inches, and that goes from sword foot forward to almost square.
And then
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that's I'm just not comfortable doing that, man. I don't want to be here. See, my thing is when I fight a lefty, I'm just when you're here, that's just hard. But we were talking about the idea of it does take away the wrap a little bit, because I mean maybe the leg not as much, but you were honestly, it looked like you were picking up when he was going to go for the leg, and you would just go like this. So like, yeah, you were just doing it.
Well, and I've got chest to chest. I probably dropped my foot back a little further, so the target's now further away, and it blades my body a little bit. So now blocking this instead of a square, I have to go over here. But if my body's turned, now it's just a little bit, just block it lower the So my shoulders might be square too.
Yeah, your shoulders are pretty
But my hips are not. And that's something else you and I talked about is when I get A plus range, I'll come in there and then I'll drop that foot back and hips back. So my shield
so you
is,
can do this.
yeah.
Because otherwise you're too close, and it's like but from there pulling back is even harder, right? But if you're doing that, now I can still there's less traffic getting back out.
And you can even, I know you don't like it, but get your shoulders square to me. You just drop the foot and hip back. The shoulders can stay square. But now, this is still open. Because your hips back, now that shoulder can rotate back. If your hips are square, now I have to hold to get my shoulder back. Oh, sorry.
Well, they're videotaping. We're getting discussion. So anyway, okay.
Yeah.
And we'll have a little bit. Yeah, we're gonna.
All right, if we want to go ahead and do,
That's up to you.
if it's up to their dimensions, but
Would you like to do short now or
Okay. Well, what?
later?
go ahead and do lunch
Later?
and then do the armored practice.
Doesn't matter. We can do whatever you want.
Well, I was wondering, Llywellyn, do you want to jump in?
Oh, please.
Yeah, let's do that. We'll finish up this part, and then we'll have a lunch, and then we'll.
Come up and then
You can leave these here if you want.
we'll.
All right.
First,
Yeah.
first and foremost, everybody, please thank His Grace for coming down here.
Yeah.
Oh, not part of this. So those of you who don't remember who I am, which is easy because sometimes I don't, I'm Llywellyn. Back in the old days, I was the 9th and 18th king of Trimaris, and I had the pleasure of having of being trained by lefties and having squires who were lefty. So I used to think of myself a little bit of a lefty specialist. I've since known that that's probably not true, but I do have a couple of things I'd like to share with specifically right-handers versus fighting a lefty, and also possibly a different way of thinking on how to fight left-handers. Right? So I'll start with that. It's very simple, basic. This is my mantra. It's really easy to be a left-handed fighter. Anybody know how? Be a better left-handed fighter. Right? Everything that he throws that works on us will work on him. All right? Period. Now you can easily say, "Oh, that sounds easy." No, it's not, because he's been doing it the entire time, and we only do it occasionally. Right? We used to have a lot of lefties in this kingdom, and for some reason, they, I guess, found other sports. But you will eventually get called in the champions battle against a lefty, or run into one on the field, or run into one in the tournament, and you need to know some basics of that. So to condense that, what I just said is everything he just taught you, take it to heart, practice it, think about what the movements he's doing. Because like you can easily say, "Oh, I have a great offside. I can hit a guy in the armpit with my offside." It's not the same thing against a lefty. All right, the lefties are coming in at different angles, and so do you. So that being said, I'll tell my quick Boru story and then go into the two little techniques I have to share. The first one is, and I think it was 92, you were king or crown prince at Penzig.
Right.
I was king, and again, I'm a lefty specialist, right? And my good friend Rick Raven's like, "Oh yeah, have you met Llywellyn? I think this is the first time we met. We were actually both in armor on the field." And so, what do you do when you're both in armor on the field? You fight. Right? So I was like, "Oh, cool, another tall, long-sworded left-hander, no problem." And we get in guard, bang! I'm like, "What the? Block that." All right, okay, fine. So he said what he was doing. He's throwing his offside. We're like your range, and he's throwing the offside, and I'm blocking. Bang! What the hell? Screw that. All right, he throws it again. I take a step. Bang! I'm like, "What? How are you hitting me in the back of my head?" All right, with his backhand. All right, I call an offside, he called a crosscut. I was like, all right. So literally, while we're fighting, I'm thinking, I got to block that. I got to figure out some way of blocking him, right? Because he's really fast. He's, eating me up. So we go the next time up. I see him pump forward. He throws it, and I do that. All right, and I catch it. And then every time he threw it after that, I do that, and I catch it. All right. So it looks like a stupid block, but it's a block that works incredibly well against lefties, and also incredibly well against the righties who throw that evil high wrap that's hard to block. All right, so it's really simple from guard. Most of you are going to be in a guard similar to this, or this, or this, or whatever that guard is, like you said before, where you're keeping either maybe your sword's back. I kind of keep it a little bit forward like here against the lefty. Is I'm going to just drop the tip and roll it around the back of my head. It doesn't have to be fast. You don't have to aim. You're not looking. So go into guard for me.
Do you want to stand over here so they can see behind our shield?
No, where I was before. Okay, so you're going to throw it. I want you to throw a slow, deep offside. All right, do it again. All right, no matter where I am, if you go ahead and try to touch the head of it. Right? All right, wherever I am on this, and it comes back around, sometimes for a really nice shot to their arm, especially if you got a guy who's going to hit this and it's going to stay out there, right? Because if I'm going to catch this here, and I'm bringing my sword up, I'm coming back around, right? Now take your big step like you used to. I don't know if you do anymore. See? Now catching that? I'm going to catch that shot anywhere on the back of my head or anywhere on the back of my shoulder. And as I come around to counter. That goes back into something I mentioned earlier about being a better left-handed fighter. Well, how are they beating us? How's a lefty, one-upping us? Well, you have to have their repertoire of shots, but you also have to know they have a thing really evil, which is their timing is simple. It's whenever you attack, right? It's all counter, right? That's what lefties are going to do. So if I'm out here like this and I throw, he knows my sword's over here. I got nothing to block my head with. My shield, and he's fast enough, he's just going to hit me right across the eyeballs. All right? So they counter. So one of the ways to get away from that is when you go to guard, make them move first. You know, suck them in, make them attack first. Then you can counter. Any questions on what I said so far? Practice this. It's an easy thing to practice on the pelt. You know, throw a shot, come back around. Throw a shot, come back around. All right, and you don't use it every time. If you got a guy who's schooling you with deep back cuts, if you're left-handed, or with high fast wraps, it is a block that you'll be amazed at how effective it is.
Now, when you're doing that, you're not going right back to the same stance, the same spot you were. You're ending up over there, and he's ending up over here.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
Well,
right now, it's looking like you're.
It depends on how much of a step he takes. Because you can step. So I'm going to step out here, and I will probably step with him.
Yeah. See, there you go.
Generally speaking, against the lefty, you want to step with them, right, or counter to them, right. Against the righty, we don't really think much about passing on the shield side. You pass a lefty on this side, you're probably going to get your ass kicked. Because if he doesn't take your leg or your body, he's going to take the back of your head. All right? So passing them on their sword side is a bad idea. All right? Just generally speaking, bad idea. So if they're going this way, I'm going to go with them. All right? Whenever possible. I'm going to roll out to counter them, you know, as they're moving. Because again, like what Boru was doing, which was beautiful, was it's all these like little subtle shifts. Well, that just changed the geometry of where his shot coming. Just by moving his hip a little bit, sliding his foot out, you've got to counter that, or he's going to hit you. You know, simple enough. The other, any questions so far on this? Yes. Also true.
Yeah, that's
Because,
true.
you know, occasionally I.
With that
Yeah, you
move,
don't want to
you're
be here and go
100% right.
conk yourself in your
Yeah.
head. So it's a good point. You
won't
need to
clear.
get your helmet up, your head up.
Helmet's a little tall.
I hear a couple of people say, "Oh, can't do that. They'll take my arm." It's like, well, if you're freezing here, yes, but you're not. The whole thing is a movement. It's a movement. Keep it moving. Come back with a shot. Come back with a wrap, or just come back into guard. You can get out of there. Any other questions on that? Anybody? Okay. Practice it. Use it when you need to. It's not an everyday thing. Like what as Grace said earlier is absolutely true. All the CA fighting, try all of it. Keep what works. Right? That's all we can. That's all any of us can do. The second thing is for your right-hand lead guys. This time I do want to switch with you. All right. So, Grace, I want you to throw. I'm going to go into. Now let's go into standard stance. Just slowly throw a shot for my leg. All right, now return it. Do it again, but really throw it just the way, return it the way you normally return it. Okay, did you see that? Anybody see that? Anybody else see that? You want to do it over here for these guys. Do that, just like that again. Now, why is he returning his sword like that?
Block the wrap.
To block
Block the
your
wrap. Yeah.
counter. Okay? Because if I'm up here with him and he throws a wrap, I'm going to throw the wrap back. Right? And what he's doing now is he's throwing the wrap shot and he's bringing the sword back across his leg. Right? Y'all see that? Throw the wrap, bring it back across your leg. And that effectively, not throw the wrap. Just by here, I'll throw first. Oh, okay. I want to throw the wrap, he's going to counter with the wrap. Y'all see that? Right? Don't get in this habit of throwing the wrap and bringing it back this way. Okay? And have it throwing the wrap.
Back it up. Yeah.
Right, throw the wrap and then bring the sword straight back across your body. Let it go down and come up. All right? Because by doing that, and again, you're not looking down to block the shot. All right? It's a no-look block. You're just assuming that if I throw a wrap, he's going to counter with a wrap, and I'm going to come back, catch it.
And the way that block was taught to me was, instead of pulling your sword back, relax your hand and bring your knuckles up.
Right. You're not exactly like you're not pulling your sword. You're like just like everything said before about, you know, you grip your sword at the moment of impact. So I'm throwing that wrap, and once I'm done here, the bottom part of my grip's relaxing, so I can swing the sword this way. I can bring the sword back this way. You know, I can come over here with it, whatever I need to do. But again, this is really critical. If you think about it, it's for you right-hand lead guys. You absolutely, positively can't change your stance. You're going to find a lefty with a right-hand lead. right? Right foot lead. This is really, really important. Okay? Because now, when he throws, when I'm up here, and I throw a wrap, and I throw a wrap, I can catch it here. All right?
And if you're right hand lead, I am hunting that leg.
He's hunting
because
if he
it
wants
feels
to.
like it's 2 inches past the edge of the shield, and if I can
Right,
get to
exactly.
it,
He can get to it, he can wrap it, he will wrap it. So, just keep that in mind. And it works not just on going to his leg. I could be going for his body and still coming back. Right? You're not going to be able to, with a sword and shield, down block that wrap shot. Okay?
Right.
You're just not. I've seen lots of guys fight lefties and they punch block it because they just go right under it.
we go under it or we hit your arm.
Right, where you hit your arm. So, and that goes back to the counter thing, going to guard, please. Is, one of my first opening shots with the lefty is simply make him think I'm going for his arm. Which is a flat snap straight to the arm. It's very safe, all right? Because I'm going to be hopefully at my range and or his range, and I can immediately come back into guard, or I come back down here or whatever, and react to what he's doing. And then it also makes him go, ah, shit, he's going after my arm. All right? Might change his shield a little bit, and that may open this up. Any questions on the return, the wrap return? Yes.
So when you're kind of doing that drag block, right? It seems like this is a lot of motion. Where's your next step from here? Because you're kind of here for at least a split second.
It's gonna be based on what he does, right? At that point, it's a reaction to what they're doing. So and it's not really as slow as that, right? We're not like, I'm just doing it slowly so we can see it. You're like throwing a shot and coming back, And it's the time that, like he did it earlier, it's just that time that this sword is down to your knee that you have a chance to stop the counter. But you're right, it's an odd thing. So a lot of times what I'll do is go into guard. I throw the wrap, throw yours, come back, and just throw another wrap. Maybe I go higher up, or if I throw the wrap, he throws the wrap, and I see him take a step to one side or the other, well then I'm going to step with him,
But it's also a survival thing. It's just survival.
It is a survival thing.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, if you can
This
get
is
out
not
of there
a
alive
setup
after throwing
necessarily
your
for a shot. Right.
and he's a reactionary fighter as a lefty, you should be, then you're like, I need to survive because I'm taking a risk.
That's why I had his grace show all you guys how he returns his sword from a wrap, because they do it all the time. All right? It's a lefty bread and butter thing. If you're going to be a better lefty, that's what you have to do that. All right? And I agree with you. It's kind of awkward. It's kind of weird. What do I do from here? Do what he does.
So, Ray, what do you do?
I do that. I pull it back, and it is not as mentally different as it might sound, because it's not really dragging the sword back. It's more have the sword take a different path back to your prepared spot. So instead of down and back up, now it's down and back.
And the reason so both of those look like that, like just what he said, is back, and it's just a way of not throwing that wrap shot and then bringing the sword like this, because they're just going to come right underneath. Yeah.
Because it can come up against your leg, or it can come out here. But the
Either way,
important part is it's in the way of the arc of that shot.
It's going to foul my wrap.
Thank you.
So those are the main two. Practice them at home, all that kind of stuff again. Practice them today if you get a chance to fight lefties. Going back to the what do you want to call it? The rolling block. We'll call it that. It's another thing that you just have to have confidence in it and try it. And it's not maybe not 100% of the time thing, but just get out there and try it. Like John Shark said, put your helmet on so you're not busting yourself in the head. I think that's everything I have to say. Okay. Any questions on anything else?
No, I think it was great.
Tapping the teeth. I don't think I've not in that term, but if you tell me what it is, maybe. Yeah, bring it up. Oh, I know what else. I have one more thing. Okay, here, you can find.
Yeah. So you're on a lefty, you're fighting a lefty, which is a terrible idea to listen to me about fighting this guy, by the way.
I get told over and over again, I do not fight like any other left-hander. So.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time doing this. But capping the tee is basically you're moving yourself, instead of moving parallel in, you move out to the front of the edge of the shield with the flat edge of your shield.
So you're trying to
Right.
tap the tee on
Right.
with the
So
shield.
usually with a feign
Okay.
or back cut.
So you're
back
talking
cut.
basically just the lefty shield. You're
Right.
trying to stop there.
Trying to get him to move this way so you can throw that side or through the rack.
Again, I think it's positional. It's not. It's a there's a. Again, not that I don't do it. I've all done it. We will do it again. I try not to intentionally move to the sword side of the left. All right, just because it opens things up more than I want. Like you said before about giving you the least amount of opportunity. I think when I go to their sword side, I'm giving them an awful lot of opportunity. All right. Not to mention, like probably the single biggest thing that righties forget to do when they're fighting lefty going to guard is I was like, oh, I'm going to close with him and take a shot. What's the first thing you do? And this is, I've got my lefty stance. I'm right. I do this. Square up. I take a step forward with my right foot because I'm going to close the distance. And I can do that all day against the righty. Not against the lefty. You know, lefty, he did it earlier. Lefty is back to old school. It's this stuff. Right? It's heel kick, drag. Because if I step forward, I better be in A range when I get there. Otherwise, I'm not gonna be stepping anymore. All right.
Most of the demonstration you were doing, you were sword foot forward. You engage.
No, I was just doing that at the end to show people. Sword foot forward. No, I will generally fight lefties shield foot forward.
Okay,
Right.
that's why I was.
I think the only change of that is once you kind of get into A range here, you just he says cool. He's like, oh, I lean further back. I have a tendency of leaning in. Because once you're here, really all he's got is the top side. So I can commit my shield pretty far down and inside and be here. Crossing the tee, there's another very quick lefty thing which will get you killed easy if you do it when they're standing. If they're on their knees or in the guard, it's a really good shot. Hit their shield and hook the back of their shield. And you don't have to be aggressive about it. All you gotta do is get your shield edge, go into guard. Right there. Okay? Now all you gotta do is account for his weapon. And again, this is the stance when you do that. Right? If he goes down at all for a wrap, I'm gonna hit him in the head.
And I think that the capping the tee is an A range thing.
Yeah, that probably
because
sounds right.
if you do it any further away, you're not making contact with my shield. You're just putting yourself in there.
I agree with that. Both of them are just ways to control the shield.
If you've legged your opponent for either of you, do you take any different approach than you would against a single-handed fighter?
That's a good question. I'll let you answer that. The legged opponent, do you change anything on how you fight?
I probably lean back a little more, so they have a big reach for shots.
Is your guard more like a hanging guard when you come in?
It is.
Same guard, doesn't really change anything.
My tip may be out more, and my shield in general may be out more,
Gotcha.
but I want to increase this angle and my view. So yeah, I probably go from this to this.
Okay.
And something you said reminded me of something I was taught years ago and swear by. You were saying that when you take a step, you end up back in stance. I try to never chase anybody more than 3 steps. I was taught that if you go more than 3 steps, you square up into a running stance.
Yeah.
You don't go back to your guard.
Good point. Very good point.
And that's what they're waiting for.
What was the other thing that you said?
Well, I said the last thing I got to say is just again, this is something else that's hard for us right-handers to get into our heads when we're fighting lefty is you do not have your full repertoire of shots. All right, you might have this really badass off-body boutique, Molyneux, thumb lead, whatever you guys are calling it now.
Shield right there.
It ain't gonna work against him. Don't even try to throw it. All right, these if I'm out here like this and I'm gonna do a deep offside fake, he's just gonna hit me in the arm. Okay, he's just oh look, go on, give me his arm. No, you don't have the full repertoire. So focus on the ones that work and get them really good. All right. Another key thing that he talked about here. I want to demonstrate. You guys can see it.
Yes.
Here. When he's here and he's already pre-cocked his hips, right? Which is brilliant. He's already pre-cocked his hips to fire that shot. Okay. Sometimes, for varieties of reasons, you don't get that. And I've taught most of my lefty squires is you need to have it in the bank, a tricep crush. So just for my arm, I can kill somebody. It's not for every shot. Okay. but it is a devastating shot when you get really close and tight. And the key here again is, just like with this, let your sword be the pendulum, you know, but you're really not moving the body much. And where this comes into play is when he talks about not telegraphing what you're doing, all right? Because you know, a lot of us, it's going to take us a while to we're set up and we're cocked, ready to do that shot. So we're just kind of like this, and he may give us that opening, and it's just a straight. I think you called it earlier a punch, offside. It's just a straight punch. Don't throw it 100% of the time, but occasionally it will make a difference in the fight.
And you're still throwing it with your body, but now instead of using rotation to get your power, I bet you shift your hips a little.
Right. Yeah. You're still you're yeah, exactly. You're just following through with your and it's a very quick shot. And it's a very good shot during fights. That's all I got. Any other questions? Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Let's.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, both of you. All right.